Breaking news, guys. Boxer Anthony Joshua has apparently been injured in a car crash that killed two people in Nigeria. The two people who have allegedly died were his coaches and close friends of his, Lats and Cena. And so this is obviously pretty horrifying news, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the car crash video that has been circulating. I'm going to try and play the less graphic of those videos, I guess, over my commentary. And yeah, this is pretty horrifying. Obviously, about a week and a half ago, Anthony Joshua knocked out Jake Paul. He had that tweet kind of indicating that he's at the top of the world, earning something like $30 million, $50 million, it being Christmas, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of just goes to show you the dichotomy of life, how quick things can change. I don't know Anthony Joshua's life that well, but this could be one of the worst days or weeks of his life now. In the videos we've seen so far, it looks like he's in pain. The best article I've been able to find, which was on MSN, it looked like it was a CNN article or something, indicates that he is well and responding to treatment. He's only suffered minor bruises, and that obviously the two other individuals who died were in the front seat, so the driver and the passenger, and were, again, his coach and close friend. And so that's pretty unfortunate. Honestly, I don't really know what to say. It's kind of reminiscent of the Francis Ngannou situation, where in Cameroon he had also had a fatal accident, I think, after the Tyson Fury fight. And so it's just really sad, to be honest with you guys. It's not something I'm going to make any jokes about or anything like that. I feel terrible for Anthony Joshua, because if the early reports that those minor injuries aren't true, obviously that could affect his career, some sort of injuries to his legs, because that's where it did look like in the video, legs or back possibly. But obviously mentally that's going to really affect him, especially to people within his camp. Obviously they're very close. He keeps a small entourage is what I'm reading. He only rides around with people who are very close to him. So yeah, it's really going to affect him, and it's really unfortunate, and I feel really bad for him. It's a pretty horrifying tragedy. And just to give you guys, I guess, some personal insight is I used to be a personal injury paralegal, actually, personal injury and employment. And so I have seen a lot of car accidents, not a lot where there's fatalities, I'll be honest. So I don't have a lot of experience with that. I only did it for about a year and a half. And so again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert. And anything I say from this point forward is going to be mostly speculative. So if you want to, I guess, click away from the video now, you're perfectly welcome to do that. I don't blame you. But here is my speculation so far, is that from the articles, we know that honestly the driver for Anthony Joshua's vehicle was at fault. It was, I think, a Mercedes Sprinter van, which probably, I don't want to say saved Anthony Joshua, but helped him a lot, because these nicer, larger vehicles do tend to be a lot safer, especially for people who are in the backseat for a head-on collision, which is what it was. It sounds like they were speeding, and they were trying to overtake someone in a lane, and they crashed into the back of a stationary truck in Nigeria. And so with two fatalities, if it is true that Anthony Joshua only has minor injuries, he's very, very lucky. Obviously, in an accident where there's fatalities, it's going to be rare for someone else to walk away with minor injuries, unless, those two individuals were not wearing seatbelts, which is potentially the case. Again, speculation. But if it is, Anthony Joshua's wearing a seatbelt, minor injuries, then he's still very, very lucky. Because if you've seen, I guess, the footage of the accident, especially when you can get a good view of the front end of the vehicle, it's a pretty bad accident. It's honestly one of the worst I've seen with my own eyes. And the nature of car accidents, guys, is I'm not going to sit here and act like, I'm going to give you some sort of technical analysis on, bumper zones, crumple zones, things like that. Because they're very, very, very just luck-based almost. It's RNG. I've seen accidents where someone gets tapped, going 30 miles per hour, and their back gets fucked up, or, the airbag goes off going 20, and that destroys someone's shoulder, things like that. My boss has talked about fatalities where, you wouldn't expect them. Obviously, the accident for a fatality does have to be major usually, but if you're not wearing a seatbelt, the speed requirement is a lot lower. We've all seen the statistics of how fatal accidents are, depending on the speeds. I guess like the percentage, how much more fatal they become, and then how much more fatal they become as a force multiplier without seatbelts. But the discussion ultimately isn't about seatbelts. It's about how lucky Anthony Joshua is. I can't stress that enough. And it is just an unfortunate day in boxing. You know, I feel horrible, obviously, for the families involved. I feel horrible for Anthony Joshua. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to discuss on it. Obviously, I think more information will come out as things move along, but it's a horrible way to end the year for both, you know, the boxing community, the combat sports community, but especially the families involved. And yeah, that's all I have to say, guys. You know, that's Benway MMA. I'm going to keep this one short and simple. I will try and keep the imagery respectful. And if you like this kind of commentary, I'm going to try and focus on the news more, and I hope it's not as negative. Goodbye.